Now, intarsia is its own thing. Some people really love intarsia. It's fun for them. Normal people don't want to do that. Hey knitters, welcome to the Knitty McPurly podcast. I'm your host, Devin Bentry. You can find me online at KnittyMcPurly.com. I am Knitty McPurly on Instagram. And if you want to email me, I am Devin at KnittyMcPurly.com. Welcome to the podcast. I am drinking today out of my Louisiana mug. Love it. Got some tea in there this morning because I woke up at 3:30. And so I have been prepping the podcast and jumping down every rabbit hole since then. So I'm definitely done with coffee for the morning. I am told that it is 62 degrees out there. I have not been out, but I am wearing my new vest, my Flora slipover. Check it. I'm struggling with my camera setup here, so I'm at kind of a different angle, but check it. Didn't it come out so good? Right? And you can see it has a little bit of a short row thing going on here. Right? So it's a little different from the pattern because it's knitted a tighter gauge. Everything is tighter about the pattern. And I went down to the smallest size and I still have plenty of ease just because my gauge was off. But I love it. It's so 70s and I paired it with these pants. And so it has just a little bit of a 70s vibe. It's a little early today. Gigi snapped some pictures of the sweater this morning, and I don't know if they came out or not yet, but it is a little early. I might need to wait until we have a little bit more sun. But anyway, very happy to have finished this. It was last night, and I was ready to go to bed, but I was almost done. So I finished it. I wove in the ends real quick, and I blocked it last night. So I went down this morning, got it, fits perfect. I'm so happy. I needed a win. After last week's volcano debacle, I needed a win. So this was really nice. All right, progress and shop news. Flux Cowl kits are available now in the shop. This is a fabulous fall knit single skein project. You get to work with the Dresden DK, which is, and I brought some up because I'm going to talk about it in a bit. This is a color that I had for the retreat. And this one had like a spot on it, I think. And so I couldn't sell this one, but I still really love the color. Where's the end? Oh, here it is. You get to work with the Dresden DK, which is a Surrey silk, but DK. So it has this like janky, jiggly, squiggly line of the silk, and all caught up in that are these chunks of the Surrey. So it's fabulous. It's so light and fluffy, and it is just great. And what I wanted, the reason I designed the Flux Cowl is because I wanted you to be able to try out the yarn to see if you liked it. I have knit a whole sweater in this yarn, my Go Lightly sweater, which I have kits for in the shop also. And I love it. It's a great DK. You don't have very much stitch definition at all. So if you're going to use it for a sweater, you want to use it for something that's like all stockinette, just a really basic sweater, so that the shape of the sweater can shine while having that fluff factor. Anything with cables or lace is just going to get lost. But anyway, the reason for the Flux Cowl, it's raison d'etre, is so that you could try the yarn, and in the end, you end up with a fall-winter accessory that's super easy to knit. It's just a rib with some increases and decreases that give you this great shape that hangs really nicely. I hate when a cowl is straight up and down because that's not going to hang right. It's not going to sit right. You've got to have some increases and decreases in there to give it that good shape. Anyway, the pattern is half off. It's only $3. And you can go get a skein of any color that you want to make either yourself one or for a very knit-worthy recipient. It's a great gift knit also. Also, the Brittany Made in the USA crochet hooks that are so beautiful with the turned handle. I have those back in stock. I have the US GHIJ, which is 4, 5, 5.5, and 6 millimeter crochet hooks. Those are back in stock. Do you remember when I Do I have it with me? I think I do. When I got that Clover Takumi Pro needle and I opened it like an 8. Oh, come on. I thought for sure it was in here. No, it's not. I thought this needle is super nice. I really like this needle, but I didn't have a project to try it on. And so it just kind of sat there. Well, I started a new project, which I'm going to tell you about in a minute. And I tried this needle and it is amazing. Like, it's so, so good. It has a clear cord. I think they're bamboo needles. Yeah, they're bamboo, and it has a swivel, and it just has a super smooth join. It is weightless. It is so lightweight. So I thought, we have to have these in the shop. They're not made in the US. They're made in Japan. They come from Japan, but you guys know how the Japanese are about doing things beautifully. So those are coming to the shop. I'm so excited. This is the first time I'm carrying knitting needles, other than I do have the double points made by Brittany, made in the US. But this is the first time I'm carrying circular needles. Very excited about it. It's funny that I have all wood needles. Like, they're so great. Anyway, I'll get to that. Okay, here it is. Here's my newest cast on. I'm so excited. After the Vivian tea, which was an obvious disaster, and I'll talk about that in a minute too, because someone stood in the gap between me and the volcano, and I'll tell that story. In the meantime, I finished this. It took me about a week and a half to knit this vest. This is the Flora slipover, as I talked about last week, and I had someone in the comments last week say, I love that vest. The Flora slipover looks great. I think that's going to be my first colorwork project. I definitely do not recommend that, because colorwork is so much easier worked in the round. And the only time you work in the round is this bottom part. The top part and the back are knit flat, and you're always decreasing. So every time you decrease, and it doesn't take you back so you can just use the pattern, you always are doing like, okay, where am I in the pattern? It's definitely not a beginner project. Also, like I said last week, it has some errors. No shade on Camilla Bad. I think she's probably a great designer. This is my only thing that I have knit from her, but she's probably a great designer. Just this pattern, I just don't recommend it. I think it came out good, but I think there are other good first projects. Something like the faux set would be a great first colorwork project, because it doesn't have a ton of colorwork. It just has a little bit. It is worked in the round. If you're a sock knitter, pick a colorwork sock, something that's worked in the round. Maybe that just has a little bit of colorwork on the cuff. I wouldn't start with anything that is not amazingly written and switches from circular colorwork to flat colorwork without any real explanation of how to do that. So just wanted to get that out there as a, yes, I knit it. I'm so happy with how it came out, but I don't recommend the pattern. So I was like, what am I going to make next? And here's the situation. I am in the car with a permit driver a lot. It's a long way to and from school every day, and I have to drive home. Obviously, I'm driving, not knitting. But on the way to school and on the way, at the end of the day after pickup, I have Gigi has her driving permit, so she is the one driving. We live in Northern Virginia, and that's not beginner driving. It's crazy. Like yesterday, we were coming home, and there were cars coming from every direction, and there was like a gap, and I was like, Gigi, just stop. Like, just stop and let everything happen, and then go. Anyway, I can't work on anything that takes a lot of my attention or that I have to be constantly looking at the pattern. So I went looking for something very simple. So of course I went over to Petite Knit's page, because Petite Knit does almost exclusively very simple patterns. I picked out the Stockholm sweater V-neck, which is so basic, so basic. This is, in the pattern, it is 2 strands, I think she's using mohair, 2 strands of mohair held together to create a DK weight. So I'm thinking, I prefer Surrey silk to mohair. I think it's a little bit more next to the skin friendly. So then the question is, well, do I use the DK Surrey silk, or do I do 2 strands and it's called Stockholm. My yarn is the Stockholm Surrey Silk, which is the one in the lace weight. So it was kind of like perfect. Or do I use the Dresden DK, which is, it's pretty much the same thing. So I thought, okay, well, let's check it out. You can tell what I picked because here I have Cast-On in Jovis. Because how pretty is that sweater going to be in Jovis? I just love it. It's such a warm white. I just think it is such a great color. Okay. So here, it's going to be, there, that's a little bit better. Here is 2 strands of the lace weight Stockholm Surrey Silk together. And what you get is more flat silk and a little bit less fluff that is more evenly distributed over the strand. So this is equal to this, but you see you get a little bit more erratic of almost a slubby Surrey in there. So I thought for this sweater, I want it to be a little bit more regular and a little bit less fluffy. I wanted to have more stitch definition. And I'm going to get more stitch definition by holding the lace weight double as opposed to using the DK. So I used my Clover Pro Takumi to do my first gauge swatch because it calls for a US 6. And I've never knit a petite knit pattern before, so I'm excited. That's really exciting for me because her patterns are really popular. She has so many of them, and I've never done one before, so I'm excited to do it. Lost my train of thought. This sweater has a really interesting construction. You basically start with a wider panel than I would expect. Oh, I was talking about my gauge. So I used the Clover Pro Takumi in the size 6 that they sent me to try, and I love the needle. I thought this needle's amazing. And I ended up getting, the gauge for the sweater is 21 stitches over 4 inches, and I had about 18. Now, I could have used the gauge switcheroo worksheet, which is available for free over on my website if you want to check it out, to figure out what size to make at that gauge. But for this pattern, I wanted the tighter fabric. I wanted to use the gauge that was called for. I don't always want to do that. In fact, I almost never want to do that. But for this particular pattern, I wanted to do that. So I went down to a US 5 needle, and that was perfect. I had 21 stitches. So I cast on for the back rectangle, and I was like, this looks too big, right? Like, why is it so big? But I checked the gauge. I checked the measurement here, which is about 22 inches. And for my stitch count, which I am making the 3rd size, the medium, it was right. It was right. For the 21 stitches over 4 inches, that gave me the 22 inches across. So I was like, okay, it doesn't seem right to me, but this is a new construction for me. I've never done this before. So basically you knit this like rear panel that's the shoulder down to below the arms. And there's no shaping in the shoulders. And then you're going to pick up each front side and knit it down like this. And then I guess at the V, it's going to join here. Then you probably knit a little bit more, and then it joins under the underarms, and then you're going to work in the round. Seems super simple, but something I've never done before. It's kind of similar to the Vivian tee. Maybe it's a European thing. The Vivian tee was like that, where you started with a panel in the back, and then you picked up in the front and joined in the front. So I guess I have worked this construction before a little bit. But this has a V-neck, so I'm excited. So it's top down, one piece, stockinette, can totally work it while watching traffic and making sure that no one dies, because that is the goal. So I had to cast on in, this is a Chow-Gu needle, because this is what I had. But when my Takumi Clover Pros come, I'm going to switch over because it's so great. Like, I mean, I'm a diehard Chow-Gu needle lover forever. I think it's a great, great needle. It's always, ever since I found it, it's been my favorite needle. I do still use other needles because I have them, and sometimes it's more convenient or closer or easier to get to or whatever. But this is the first time that I've been like, Chow-Gu has a major competitor now. I'll have to work more with it to see which one comes out on top, but they're neck and neck. Okay. Excited. So excited to start. You guys know, it's like the new cast-on feeling. It's so good. All right. Last thing I want to talk about, I think. Yes. last thing I want to talk about is the Advent calendar. I am so excited about the Advent calendar. It is so beautiful. It's coming out so great. And what I wanted to say, if you purchased an Advent calendar, they will be shipping probably the beginning of November. I like to get things out early. I never do anything late. I am hardwired to be early all the time. So I'll probably ship them at the beginning of November. If you did not get an Advent calendar, there will be a very small number that are available in November that you can purchase so that you'll get it in time for Advent. This is a little bit different than the way that I have been doing them in the past. Typically, what I do for Advent calendars is I will plan out the whole thing, and I usually go through a couple different color stories throughout so that it ends up being a lot of different colors. For this one, it is mainly blue and green. So it is perfect for a fade. And I thought if you didn't want to do a fade, I would recommend, like, let's say you got a DK Advent calendar and you want to make a blanket. I would recommend something that has blocks or hexagons where each color is distinct. I don't think this particular Advent lends itself that well to stripes. I just can't see it personally. That's my humble opinion, having seen the whole thing. So I thought, and I won't be able to show it until like January or, December 26th. I won't be able to show it till then. But I thought I wanted to knit something in the Advent calendar so that I could show it to you. And the pattern that I picked is called the Faded Undulation Shawl by Stephen West. And I think any faded pattern would work, like What the Fade or Find Your Fade. Now, it's only about 450 grams of yarn. So if you did something like What the Fade, you would not have enough yarn to knit the entire 600 gram shawl. But personally, I like that shawl smaller. The one that I have that I riffed on, it's not entirely the pattern. I started out with the brioche pattern and I did the garter, and then I kind of riffed. I have some baubles in there. I just did whatever I wanted to do. But I ended up with a smaller shawl. And I personally think that 450 grams is a perfect amount for a shawl. So if you wanted to do a shawl, you could do one where you have the option of just stopping, like, okay, I'm out of yarn, now I'm going to bind, or I have just enough yarn to bind off, now I'm going to bind off. And there you have it. And this one, this Faded Undulation Shawl, I loved the way it looked. I loved that it's essentially a triangle shawl, even though you're starting at one end and you're, going till you have a large, it's like you start here and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, but you can wear that like a triangle shawl. It would look really cute with if you took the scraps and did pom-poms, that would be really fun. So I thought I would recommend that because if you got an Advent calendar and you're thinking about what you want to make with that, I recommend a fade. If you're going to do a blanket, I recommend one that has separate blocks of some sort. Or even like the Northeasterly where it's kind of in chunks. I think that would look good too, where you could mix and match them. Go to Ravelry and type in fade, and you can type in fade shawl and you can see all the different options. The other reason that I picked this Stephen West shawl is that it is super easy. It's pretty much garter. You do end up with that feather and fan, which looks really cool. If you look at his, it's so wavy. The whole thing is very wavy, but it's very, very simple. So again, I won't be able to show you mine. It'll be something I'll be working on, while my teenager is driving and whatnot. But again, I think it's one that will lend itself well to that. So, okay. The topic of the week. I know I don't always have a topic of the week. And the reason for that is because I'm a very busy person and sometimes I just run out of time. And sometimes I think of something during the week and I forget to write it down. And then when it comes time to prep the podcast, I have already forgotten. But I keep pictures in my phone of stuff that I have seen online that I love. Not necessarily knitting patterns. In fact, if I put a picture of it if it's in this category of things, it's never a knitting pattern. It's something you can buy at a store, but that I would love to knit. And so this is a picture of something that I would love to make. I would love to have this in my wardrobe. I'm super into vests right now, as you can tell, made a couple lately. I love the very simple silhouette of this and the cool detailed pear. Now, One thing that you have to know going into something like this, if you wanted to make it, is you need to work it at a very fine gauge. And I would not get all the detail hand knitting it, even, fingering weight on like a size 1 or 2 needle. I'm not going to get the detail that a machine can knit it. So you just kind of know that going in. But I think we could accomplish this fairly easily with duplicate stitch. And I thought I would talk a little bit about duplicate stitch, especially as it related to last week's story, where Lori put the USA across the front of her sweater using duplicate stitch. It is so easy to do if you've never done it before. Intarsia is the process where you have an image like the pear on the vest, and you're knitting it similar to stranded color work, except that the yarn doesn't go all the way around with you. You're going to have bobbins hanging off the back of the yarn. And you have to work that back and forth because that's where the bobbin ended up. So if you knit across the front, the bobbin of, let's say, the green for the pear is hanging off of the right end of the knitting, so that when you turn it around and you go back, you have to pick it up and you can work it that way. Now, intarsia is its own thing. Some people really love intarsia. It's fun for them. Normal people don't want to do that. Looking at you, Ann Pinkova. Ann is super good at intarsia. But so if you like it, you go, girl. You do it up. But for me, I like the easy road. Give me the easy road. Give me the duplicate stitch. All duplicate stitches is where you are putting a color just over top of the knitting. So for example, for this vest, you would knit the vest in gray, bind it off, weave the ends in, block it, I presume. Not sure when the best time to block is for duplicate stitch, but I guess we could look that up and find out. Then, and if I had had time, I would have done a demonstration of this myself, but I found this wonderful, helpful video from Very Pink Knits where she shows how to do the duplicate stitch.
It just so happens the yarn I'm using to embroider is worsted weight, and this is a chunky weight, so I'm going to hold this yarn double-stranded. We already talked about the knit stitch being a bunch of V's. You want to come in at the bottom of a V, like this. Leave yourself enough to weave in back there. We're at the bottom of a V right here. You want to skip that V and the V above it, go in, grabbing both legs, like that. Pull it through, watching your tension as you do it, and I have to pay special attention because I'm using double strands. Then go back down into the same hole you came out of. Ta-da! There you go. It looks just like a V.
It is so easy. You just go in at the bottom of the stitch, skip the stitch that you're going to have as duplicate, go through the 2 legs of the stitch above it, and then you go back in through that same hole at the beginning that you started with. And you just do that to every stitch that you want to be another color. It is so, so easy. You have to be careful with things like tension. You don't want your yarn to get all twisty because that can look weird. You have to kind of, after each stitch, you want to make sure your yarn is laying flat so that it looks good. A tip that Very Pink Knits gives in this video, and I'll link that video below if you want to go watch the whole thing. It's very short. It's like 4 minutes long. But one very helpful tip she says is that when you're working on a picture that you want to duplicate stitch, start at the bottom of the picture and work your way up. Because if you start at the top and go down, you're going through stitches you've already done, and you want to be sure that you're picking up the original color, the original knitting, and not just your new duplicate yarn. So it's very much easier if you start at the bottom of the picture and work your way up. So there's a little tip in case you thought, you've seen something online and you're like, gosh, that's really, really cool. There have been sweaters like, where it's like an all white sweater and it has like a red heart on it that have been popular recently. And you might look at that and go, well, that's too much work. I don't want to do that in Tarja. I don't want to deal with all the intricacies of making it, the edges look right and getting it all tensioned properly. You can always do it with duplicate stitch. All right, the comment section. My favorite comment comes to us from the Selfish Knitter, who was the gifter of last week's mug, Please forgive me. I forget who gave me Louisiana. If you gave me Louisiana, would you leave your name in the comments so I can shout you out? I really appreciate that. The Creole state. I also have, what's that big city in Louisiana? That one that, New Orleans. Is that in Louisiana? That's embarrassing. Oh my gosh. Anyway, my favorite comment comes from Colleen, and she says, perhaps the active volcano is the reason so many knitters flock to Iceland. I bet that's it. It's the Lopi and the volcanoes, because sometimes you just have a project that needs to end up in a volcano. So before I read the rest of the comments, I will tell you that Annette from Michigan, hi Annette, stood in the gap between me and the volcano. And after I was reading through the comments this morning, and I found that someone else was also willing to stand in the gap. I couldn't believe anyone was willing to get in between me and the volcano, but 2 people were willing to do that. Annette said, do you want to send it to me? Because I'll work on it. I don't know if I can do anything with it, but maybe. I was like, sure. Anybody who's willing to jump into that slot, you got it. So I put the project, it's still on the needles. I left the horrible ruffles on. I'm sorry about that, Annette. I probably should have pulled those out. I put my little stitch count, my little click, click row counter in there. I'm on row 5 in case anything happened to that, Annette, in mailing, in transit. It's row 5, and I stuck the pattern in there, and I was like, God bless. May the force be with you. Whatever happens, I don't care, because it was that or the volcano. But hopefully Annette can do something amazing. That would be great. I would love to see it. Lori from last week's story says, thanks for sharing my story and giving me the confidence to try that. I love the colors of your vest. As to the T-Fix failure, woohoo, girls knitting trip to Hawaii. And I got a couple comments like that, like, okay, next retreat, Hawaii. That actually sounds amazing. We should totally do that. I can't afford that, but it sounds amazing. Anne Marie says, I love that you're willing to admit defeat on air. You have so many successes. You don't need to worry about this little hiccup. I really appreciate that, Anne Marie, because it is hard, because you want to rock everything all the time and you just want to crush it day in and day out. But sometimes you just fail miserably. Another wonderful comment from Amy. Hi, Amy. She says, Devin, I'm such a fan of the sweater you are wearing, talking about last week's sweater. It's so flattering on you and looks great with your new hair color. She says, my knitting has been fraught with errors lately. I think maybe I need a more complicated design that gets me back into the habit of paying attention to the pattern. I've been so frustrated with myself and stressed because I just want to finish and start something new. I actually lost sleep over the weekend. Scott reminded me that knitting is supposed to be fun and zen. And if I'm using words like stressed and frustrated, perhaps I need a new attitude. She says, I'm going to work on some old whips for the rest of the month. It will hopefully engage my brain and get me back on track for a new September cast-on. And that comment was like balm on my soul, because Amy is my knitting hero. She's just, everything she does looks amazing. So to hear her say, you know, sometimes it's just a disaster, and you're like, ugh, it just made me feel better, because mine was a disaster and I was like, ugh. So thank you to all of you who left comments last week. I really appreciate it. When you guys subscribe and leave a comment, it gives my video to more new people. I have like doubled my viewership in the past couple of months. I've put some effort into it also, but it's also your comments and your subscribing and sharing. If you could share it, that would be great. Thank you. Thank you. All right, knitting fantasies. I am actually like, I have my finger on the pulse of what's happening now, which is really unusual because I'm usually like years behind the curve. Just released is the new Ovis sweater by Caitlin Hunter. Now, I looked at the sweater and I thought, this is cool. I love kind of the circles with the cross in the middle. I really like that. And then I realized those are sheep. Do you see it now? I don't think they're super obvious sheep, especially because the sweater is red and white. You know, if they had been a more sheepy color, but then you'd be working with 3 colors at one time. No shade at all. I think it's great. This is a DK weight sweater. It comes in 9 sizes. It is $9 over on Ravelry, and it ranges in size from 32 inches as the finished garment size up to 68 inches. So if you wanted to knit it with a different weight of yarn, or if you got a different gauge, that would be easy to do with all those sizes using the gauge switcheroo worksheet. Yeah, I mean, it's a cool sweater. I'm not super tempted to knit it. I don't know why. I guess because I love sheep. I don't know. It's fine. It's nice. I don't love it. I think Caitlin has some really amazing designs. This one's just mid for me, but maybe you see it and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to have it. My next pick is a free pattern that is brand new, just published August 2025. This is the Rim Frost Vest by Carrie Rasmussen. It is a lace plus lace plus lace. So I guess you're holding, see this says I'm holding the lace double and getting a DK weight. She says I'm holding the lace triple and getting a sport weight. So I don't know. I guess I would do what she did because it worked for her, and that's kind of what she based her sweater on. This looks to me like it is a tie on the side. There aren't super like close-up pictures where you can really see what it is, but it looks like there's a tie on the side, which would make the entire thing knit flat. But very cute. I really like it. I love how this model has styled it with the big cuff. I think that looks really good. But it's a free pattern, so if you want that, hop over to Ravelry and grab it. I haven't seen it. It might exist elsewhere. I don't know. I haven't looked. Okay, here we are at, so here's what happened. Today's story comes to us from Rachel. Hi, Rachel. And Rachel has had a moment like I did recently with the Vivian Tea, and like Amy has been having. And she describes it for us. And she wrote it like as it was very fresh. She sent me this back in July, but she said she's telling me the story as this mistake happened this morning. She says, yesterday, I was so excited about learning a new technique for the self-care copper wing shawl by Wool and Pine I've been working on. I finally finished the first and largest section. There's a transition row of horizontal knitting, which I'm pretty sure is Latvian braid, between the main color yarn used in section 1 and the contrast color used in section 2. The instructions state to break the main color yarn, join the contrast color, and then do the row of horizontal knitting below. Well, and this right here, what happened to Rachel, I so relate. You look up, you know what you're doing, you look back down, you've skipped something, and you find the directions where you think you are, but you're not. She says, instead of looking directly below that sentence, my eyes jumped to a few rows below that, to the second set of instructions for the horizontal row, which uses the main and contrast colors. I feel like we need some sort of visual cue in the pattern, like maybe one of those like a colored block. Whenever I have like repeat stuff in my patterns, I generally put them in a box. So you know your eye goes right to the box. She says, I remember thinking that it was dumb to break the main color yarn just to rejoin it, but I plowed ahead nonetheless, figuring out a rhythm of holding the contrast yarn in my left hand and the main color yarn in my right hand to work the stitch pairs that form the contrast row of horizontal knitting. Altogether, it took close to 4 hours to knit that row, at the end of which it says to work the last 3 I-cord stitches in the main color. If the next section uses the contrast color, why am I finishing with the main color? Back to the instructions, and I just happened to see the sentence for a horizontal row using only the contrast color right below the sentence that said to break the main color yarn. And my heart just deflated like a balloon. So what do? Can I live with a row of main color in a sea of contrast color? Do I leave it and move on to section 2? Do I carefully tink back all 347 stitches and redo it? For the time being, it's been relegated to the naughty corner to think about what it did while I decide what to do. So much for carefully reading the instructions. I guess I spent 4 hours learning a technique that will be used at the end of section 2, so that time wasn't a complete waste. And working the row with just one color won't require two-handed yarn management, so it will go faster. All of which means I think I'm going to tink it back and work it correctly. Eventually. Someday. Now, I know Rachel, and she does not shy away from a good tink back. She is going to be doing that. I'm certain. I don't even need to say, Rachel, tell us what happened, because I know that she did that. It was a month ago, but I'm sure that that's what she did. She probably has that shawl done and like 10 more. So if you have one, Rachel, send it to us. Send us the picture and let us know what you did, and I'll share the picture, but I'm sure that she did that. I see what you mean. I'm not familiar with the shawl. I don't know if that would look intentional or not. It's pretty. I like the colors. So, all right, knitters, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week. Hope you get a lot of knitting in. I hope I get a lot of knitting in. I'm just so excited to start these 2 new projects. It's great when you finish something, and I know I didn't finish the Vivian tee, but we're just going to forget about that. It's gone. It's with the net now. I have finished this project and I'm on to 2 new ones, and I'm very happy about it. All right, knitters, see you next time. Have a great week. Bye.